saw it as a kid, and I was like wondering how and why people would act and would perform acts like that. Um, so yeah, but without further ado, let me just get into the facts that I prepared. Um, so I'm gonna start off with fact number 1. Obviously, a total of 6 million Jews, Roma, homosexuals, handicapped, and Slavic people have been killed by the Nazi plan to cleanse humanity. This entire process is what is now called the Holocaust. Fact number 2. This did not happen in one day. The underlying factor was a unmeasurable hate and feeling of superiority, which was indoctrinated due to years of propaganda. Anti-Semitism was around for centuries before it got its wings when the Nazis rose to power in 1933. Fact number 3. Anti-Semitism, as I already said, was nothing new back then. Around the end of February, Jewish people celebrate a holiday called Purim, or Purim, I think you pronounce it that way. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. This holiday celebrates an event that dates back to the 5th century before the birth of Christ. And it's about the story that King Xerxes was married to Esther, a Jewish woman. His counselor, called Haman, had a conflict with the uncle of Esther, and his name was Mordecai. Haman ordered his officers to mass exterminate the Jewish people because of that conflict. Talk about exaggeration, but yeah, in the whole kingdom, and to take their belongings. However, as Esther noticed the plans of Haman and told Xerxes, Xerxes then had Haman executed. This fact was just to demonstrate that anti-Semitism was nothing new or wasn't invented by the Nazis. It goes back way in history, and yeah, even in the 5th century before the birth of Christ, there already was anti-Semitism. Moving on to fact number 4. Another historical event from around 38 after the death of Christ, under the rule of Roman Emperor Caligula, there were mass slaughtering of Jewish people and synagogues in Alexandria. The reason for this was that the Jewish people there did not want to recognize Caligula as a god. Also, another historical event that shows that anti-Semitism wasn't something new in the 20th century is fact number 5. The church in 1215 AD decided that Jewish people should live in certain areas in cities, and that they should wear a sign on their clothing. In some areas even, Jews were ordered to wear bells on their clothing so that Christian people could hear them coming and leave the area, I guess. Later on, in 1543, the famous church reformer called Martin Luther called the Jews poisonous snakes and called upon the people to burn synagogues and houses of Jews. The Jewish people would be forced to labor or be exiled from the lands. As you can see, these first 5 facts, they illustrate that anti-Semitism was around for like centuries, thousands of years even, before it really got its wings, as they say in the article that I read during the Nazi regime, you know. century right now, with fact number 6. Diving back in the 20th century Germany, in 1923, the 8th of November, Adolf Hitler is on stage and fires a gun in the air. He then proceeds to shout, "The revolution has begun." This happened in München in a beer cellar called the Bürgerbraukeller. That night, Hitler wanted to seize power in Germany by performing a coup. However, this coup failed, and it failed because due to lack of support of the people and the police. The next morning, Hitler and his companions saw that the metaphorical flame that was the Bierkeller Putsch was extinguished very quickly. Hitler was then arrested and he was jailed. Fact number 7. Following this event, the NSDAP, the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeitspartei, which was the party of Hitler, was banned, and Hitler was sentenced to 5 years of prison for high treason. During this time, Hitler wrote a famous book called Mein Kampf, which means My Struggle. In his book, Hitler made it absolutely clear that his goal was to remove the Jews out of Germany. For example, Hitler wrote, "The black-haired Jew is lurking for hours with a devilish grin upon an innocent German girl, waiting to pollute her with his Jewish blood and to take her away from her people," which obviously already implies a lot of hate and this obsession of Adolf Hitler about racial purity. Fact number 8. According to Hitler, the Jews were out for world domination, and he blamed them for the defeat of Germany in World War I. Later on, this proved to be very useful in empowering the nationalistic feeling of the Nazis, while at the same time fueling the hate for the Jews. Due to blaming the Jews for the defeat of Germany in World War I, the Germans did not have to blame themselves, so they could still remain feeling superior, and they had a scapegoat, which were the Jews. And as you might know, there's a certain psychologist, I forgot his name, but he came up with the scapegoat theory, and it's a sociologist, I think. But this theory basically implies that you can, it makes it easier to rule people if you have a common scapegoat, a minority on which you can put the blame for certain events, crises, or losing a war. And that is a strategy that you can use, I guess, to control the entirety of the people, because, yeah, as in this case, it gives a feeling of mutual hate, which can be a strong motivator for some dark purposes, I guess. Moving on to fact number 9. In many of the countries in the 20th century, there were Christian nationalists who believed that Jewish people were evil and out for world domination. This was because there was a conspiracy theory that originated in the 18th century. This conspiracy theory grew stronger due to the false report of a Jewish international conference. This report was called the Protocols of Zion. In reality, however, these reports were made by the Russian safety police. According to these protocols, the Jews were out for world domination due to liberalism and socialism. Although it was proven that the Protocols of Zion were fake in 1921, Hitler remained a firm believer of this conspiracy theory. He often referred to the protocols in propaganda, which eventually led to the Holocaust. Fact number 10. After the failed coup in München, Hitler and the Nazi Party wanted to get to power in a legitimate way. When Wall Street crashed and an economic crisis emerged in 1929, the Nazis got the support of the public. Then, in 1933, Hitler got elected and rose to power in Germany. This meant that there were now 500,000 Jews living in an openly anti-Semitic state. In the first months after the election, NSDAP members killed around 40 Jews in smaller province cities in the southwest of Germany. These incidents were frowned upon heavily by the UK and the United States. Many businessmen wanted a boycott on German imports because of this. This made Hitler furious. He then introduced the first collective law against the Jewish people. He did this just to show the UK and the USA that they should mind their own business and that they should not intervene with what happens in Germany. Because if they would keep doing this, the Jewish people in Germany would be the victim. Fact number 11. The 10th of May in 1933, students stormed the University of Berlin, the libraries, etc., to take away certain books. These books were transported with trucks towards the Opernplatz. The books contained works of Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, Ernest Hemingway, etc., etc., etc. When it got dark, members of the SA torched a gigantic fire and burned down 25,000 books. In the months that followed, non-Aryan doctors and dentists were prohibited to practice medicine. In 1934, Jewish people would also be prohibited to be a lawyer and pharmacist. Fact number 12. In September 1935, Hitler publicly announced the racial law of Nuremberg. This was to, quote-unquote, protect the German people from the Jewish danger. He said that the only way to do this was by law. Starting from now, a German state citizen had to be from German or related blood. Every Jewish German lost its citizenship. The law also prohibited Jews and Aryan people to marry or have intercourse. Schools, universities, movie theaters, libraries, and public parks were also being prohibited for Jews. Fact number 13. Due to these racial laws, Jews were casted out of society, but they could still more or less live their life. However, this would change at the end of 1938. This too changed. The Gestapo started deporting Jews to the no man's land between Germany and Poland. Between these deported families, there was the family of a 17-year-old called Herschel Grinspan. Herschel himself stayed at his uncle in Paris, but when he heard of his family being deported to Poland, he was furious. He was outraged, sad, and out for vengeance. The 7th of November, he decided to shoot a German diplomat. This diplomat was named Ernst von Rom. Initially, he survived, but he was in critical condition. The next day, every German newspaper had titles like "Every Jew is a killer who hates Germany," etc., etc. This caused heavy rioting throughout Germany when Nazi members started burning synagogues. Fact number 14. When Ernst von Rath, I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrong, died on the 9th of November 1938. That is when Hitler decided to do the following. He whispered to Goebbels that for one night the Jews should feel the rage of the public. All the Nazi head members were already gathered because of the remembering of the failed Bierkeller Putsch 15 years ago. Hitler told Goebbels he should do what he has to do. Hitler himself left the gathering, and Goebbels then rose to the stage and held an infamous speech. He told the members present to burn synagogues and destroy Jewish stores and houses. These members then telephoned to their local Nazi members to pass on this order. Then, on the 9th of November at midnight, the infamous Kristallnacht took place. In total, the Nazis destroyed over 7,500 Jewish stores, and around 30,000 Jewish men were deported to the nearest concentration camp. 267 synagogues were burned. Fact number 15. After the infamous Kristallnacht, Jews were ordered to clean up the broken glass and the burned down buildings themselves. On top of that, the Nazi government fined the Jewish community with a debt of 1 billion Reichsmark. The only Nazis that were punished were those who raped Jewish women because they broke the Nuremberg racial laws. According to the official numbers, there were 91 deadly victims. In reality, there were some thousands of victims. Also, following the deaths of their husbands, around 300 Jewish women committed suicide after Kristallnacht. For the Jewish community, the Kristallnacht was a turning point. Following a period of 6 years of openly being discriminated and apartheid, now came open violence. When war broke out in September 1939, already 282,000 Jews of the 500,000 Jews already fled the country. Moving on to fact number 16. In June 1940, Nazi officers walked into a Polish military base. 9 months earlier, the Germans launched Europe into the Second World War. In a very short time, they conquered Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France, and it seemed only a matter of time when they would take over all of Europe. Until that time, this Polish military base in Auschwitz had to function as a concentration camp for Polish enemies of the state. The original purpose of the camp was forced labor for intellectuals, activists, and priests. Moving on to fact number 17. Rudolf Höss was appointed camp commander. This 39-year-old SS commander already made a name for himself when it comes to leading a concentration camp. In Dachau, he noticed that hard work was keeping the prisoners busy and too tired to revolt. He therefore copied the motto Arbeit macht frei from Dachau, and he made it in large iron letters and installed it on the gate of Auschwitz. Rudolf Höss actually had been a prisoner himself during the Weimar Republic, a government that was installed before the Nazi government in Germany. And he thought that physical labor got him through his sentence, which is also a reason why he picked out the name Arbeit macht frei. There is also a story about the bee on the letters of the top of the gate. Apparently, it is not well attached, and some people say that prisoners did this on purpose to warn other prisoners that of the cynical aspect of the phrase Arbeitsmarktfrei, because it doesn't get you free in Auschwitz. Obviously, other sources say that it was just because of there was this experimental fund which they used for the bee, and the bee caused the bee to be too small, which is why it didn't really fit on the gate. But yeah. Moving on to fact number 18. Heinrich Himmler wanted the Polish countryside to be a place where Aryan people could settle. Because the area around Auschwitz was swampy, it was very unpopulated. The intention was that the prisoners could turn it into farming land for the future Aryan people. Afterwards, the prisoners would be forced to work in factories in Germany itself or help with the construction of Hitler's fantasy buildings. When the war went on and the Germans invaded the USSR, the number of POWs rose quickly. Therefore, the plans changed. Himmler ordered the camp to be expanded, and he ordered that the village of Birkenau had to be prepared for all the Russian POWs that would come. Because of the swamp like terrain, the barracks got really moist, as would the clothes of the prisoners. According to a camp officer, he said they could handle the cold, but they would die because their clothes were too wet. This caused the body count to rise really fast, causing concern for disease, which is why they ordered the construction of the infamous crematoria ovens. Fact number 19. When the Germans pushed forward into Russia, Einsatztruppen were ordered to find and kill Jewish people in captured territory. When Himmler attended one of these mass shootings, he noticed that the SS men were suffering from the ongoing killing. Some SS men even broke down and begged Himmler himself to never having to shoot any more prisoners. This caused Himmler to think of another solution, because he saw that the SS men would become traumatized by having to shoot people constantly, it wasn't that Himmler was concerned with the Jewish people getting shot, but he was concerned with his own SS troops, obviously, which is why eventually they came up with the gas chambers and using Zyklon B. Now, the use of gas to kill the enemies of the state, that originated, I saw it once in a documentary, and apparently they got their inspiration by an SS officer who was drunk, and he fell asleep in his car with the engine on in his own garage, and he almost got killed. And apparently that inspired the SS to use gas for mass killings. But I'll just leave that in the middle. You can look it up for yourself if you want. Eventually, I'm now at the last fact. Fact number 20, that is. It wasn't long before the gas chambers secret would be discovered by other inmates in Auschwitz. To cover up the sound of the screaming, the SS men would let the engines of motorcycles roar. This also could not cover up the screaming. At its height, Auschwitz was gassing. The Germans were gassing around 150,000 people in Auschwitz a month. This is a truly shocking number. Later on, Rudolf Höss apologized to the Polish people before he was executed. So yeah, these were the facts that I prepared, and this goes without saying, but I feel like I should say it. I'm in no way glorifying any of these events. should keep on studying these topics. Um, anyways, I'll wrap up this video. I hope you thought the video was interesting, and I'll see you in the next video. Maybe a less dark topic. Anyways, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.